Okay, well, here we are, guys. How's it going?
It's going.
So far, so good.
So we have a special guest with us today, Ali Alexander. Maybe you can tell the folks, or should I say we have Sammy Davis Jr. here with us?
I get that a lot, too.
I bet you do. Okay, so what's the story? Who are you? For the folks that don't know you, well, give us your story.
on Twitter. Got a three-letter handle.
Now, how did you do that? That's pretty amazing.
It's what I
You're
do,
not Ali 397569.
But I'm a political hack. I think it's kind of interesting because like Mike is very has terrific prolific commentary.
Sure.
Across lifestyle and politics. And for me, it's kind of been the opposite, where it's like I've done a lot of work and like in campaigns and stuff like that, and then a following happened to amass, like because they wanted to watch this race or that race, and then people just were along for the ride. So it's really kind of interesting. Like I don't consider myself a personality or a leader of folks. I just create a lot of messes, I guess, on Twitter.
You were were you at South by Southwest when Twitter launched?
I wasn't at South by Southwest, but yeah, I was like the first 4 political operatives that joined Twitter, and we made sure that there was mass adoption on the Republican side, so that we had them outpaced to like 2012.
So you're a very early adopter of this.
2007.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was founded in 2006, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Not many accounts from 2007.
Not anymore, but it's only so long before they maybe ban me, so maybe mine won't be around.
I think you've been pretty good. I don't know. You never know, though.
Yeah, you never know.
The Twitter bans never know. So you have a pretty long storied history. I think you did. Used to organize big conventions at the RNC, didn't you?
Yeah. And I've done a lot of work with, establishment forces and grassroots forces, and run the comms for this conference. That's actually how I met the president in 2014. Is I was the deputy of this conference, Republican Leadership Conference in 2014, and me and the president hit it off because he actually knew Sammy Davis Jr. So he was telling me some stories that I can't really repeat, but they're rated R stories or more, and we just kind of hit it off, even though I didn't really agree with his temperament and his politics. What I learned was the guy was human. He's intelligent. He writes his own speeches. There is a method to the madness, and it was really cool, like just hanging out with him for 4 hours.
So would you consider yourself a political operative?
Yeah, operatives usually have one job, and consultants have like 5 jobs going, so I'm technically a consultant.
So yeah, what would be the difference? For people who don't know much about the ins and outs of the infrastructure of politics.
The business side of politics?
So I think I divide politics into 3 categories. There's electoral politics, and that's campaigns. There's the think tank space, so that's Heritage Foundation, Freedom Works Foundation. On the left, you have a plethora. And then I think there's commentary, and that's media. A lot of people group everyone together, and some people check like 2 boxes, very rarely. But the majority of my work and my money comes from electoral politics. So super PACs, billionaires and millionaires approach me to make sure that their money is going to causes that they believe in. And I kind of act as an auditor of campaigns or, vetting of personnel. And, but yeah, I got my start working on 3 campaigns simultaneously. I never had an internship.
Do you remember who those candidates were?
Yeah, I do. I'm not gonna like leech them in, but John McCain was one of them. So I worked for the John McCain presidential campaign.
So you've worked on some large campaigns.
Yeah. I mean, all my races are federal, and statewide, and I have like a lot of wins under my belt. But what's cool about what we did in 2007, 8, and then the Tea Party in 2009 and 10 was that we operatives used to have win-loss ratios, and that used to matter a bunch. If you lost more than you won, you were out of the business. That doesn't matter anymore. Everyone cares about your fight, what your values are. So in a lot of ways, like I just was like this dome kid on Twitter and just blabbing my mouth about the issues, not even realizing I wasn't supposed to talk about my own personal beliefs, And what's funny is, so I've recruited clients from Twitter, and it just used to be the opposite. You can have an opinion if you're a consultant or an operative, but operatives work one job. They're a campaign manager, a comms director, a field director. They do something with one organization. A consultant has an expertise in an area, and then they work across,
so you're a general clients. When you go into this campaign, you're more of a general guiding operatives.
Yeah, and campaigns have a general consultant, and he'll be managing 5 races. So he'll manage the campaign managers. He'll manage the direct mail and the TV ad buys. He'll hire, everyone. So I'm not a general consultant. I have done that on a couple races, but only races that are really, really special to me. But what I usually come in and do is you seek me out if you need a conservative to vouch for you on K Street or with conservative think tanks. If you're seeking an endorsement from Club for Growth or Freedom Works, you want to do the candidate briefing at Heritage, like I'm the guy you talk to before you talk to them, so that you're all prepped up for it. Make sure your values align.
So I assume that the business side of this it's very cyclical. 2020 is going to be a busy year.
Yeah, I will make more money in 2020 than I've ever made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So talk about direct mail and other things, which is interesting because it still works.
Yeah.
Direct mail still works, right? People, you get this, especially younger people who think they know everything about marketing and everything. But direct mail still is killer in politics.
It's king. And it's funny because you can go, so I've had the distinct privilege because, again, my career is like, I've been blessed by God. I don't think it's because like I'm super smart. I got in to help solve the internet problem, and then I was a co-founder of the Tea Party movement. Without those two things, I wouldn't have the Rolodex I have. And I'm not that good, And but like some of these states, like South Carolina, is the biggest direct mail state. You cannot run a race in South Carolina unless a lot of your what's called your voter contact budget is going to direct mail. And some states are like this, and then some states are really, really heavy on TV. Everybody's so big on TV, but like some of these states, it's more TV than direct mail. But we can't forget that the baby boomers are going to be around for a long time. And, they still open their mail, and it's about name ID.
We've seen this in the real estate space where direct mail is actually a more effective marketing technique in 2019.
You're paying $1.50 to get into somebody's
than it was 5 years ago. Yeah. I mean, because we started up a postcard campaign over the past 12 months in my own real estate organization. And the effects of that have been remarkable compared to where they were 5 years ago. I think are people just not doing it anymore? And so maybe there's less junk mail coming through, and what few pieces come through.
Yeah, all this anecdotal evidence
attention.
Is stupid, right? It's like nobody, you have to go with the data. So like do a little TV, do a little radio, do a little direct mail, do some digital, see where the bang for your buck is. And in campaigns, a lot of people think, oh, I'm talking to Republicans, I'm talking to Democrats. You need to assemble a coalition that reflects your resume plus your party. And so, if Mike ran for Congress, it may be something where he can grab, he's been really big about the college student debt stuff. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be talking to those people. He's from an interracial family. There's no reason why he shouldn't be talking to young couples and starter homes. You cobble together 50% plus one and you win. And so figuring out the best medium, the most cost-effective way of doing that, and then tracking it, which thank God that's come to direct mail, here in the past 10 years. You just got to do that if you're serious about winning. And
are you driving, when you send out a postcard, are you driving people back onto the internet though? From the postcard?
You should be.
Okay.
And because you're either leaving them with the impression you would have left them with otherwise offline, or there's a chance you get 25% of those people to access a link where they find out more information, then you get their email address, and then it's like a click funnel. And campaigns are getting better about this. What I will say about the Trump campaign is the Trump campaign is the first campaign in U.S. history to spend 50% of, again, what's called your voter contact budget, which is like 75% of all your money that you raise.
Yeah, let's stop, and because I think you're saying a lot of things that are great, but that a lot of people might be interested in not know. So, like, you're running for a seat, the seat would be $1 to $3 million range. So you have $1 million. How does that get divided up? Abstractly, because I realize it'll be different state by state.
Yeah, so $1 million, like, 250,000, maybe 300,000 goes to administrative stuff, travel, staff, et cetera, et cetera. The rest is what you call a voter contact budget. And of your voter contact budget, traditionally on campaigns, it's really divided right now what experts think you should be doing, but TV and direct mail are 70% of that, what's called the voter contact budget. And then, the rest might be digital, whatever. So the Trump campaign came in, they did 50% digital. It had never been done. And I think anybody, who's been in this industry a long time would still argue that there were huge diminishing returns, right? You can touch somebody so many times that eventually you're just wasting money touching the same people. And so Brad Parscale has really forced the industry to kind of adapt, because I remember me and Patrick Ruffini and David All and Michael Turk and Mindy Finn, who, ran with Evan McMullen, she was a pioneer in this space. We were arguing, we were begging for, 10% of the voter contact budget, back in 2012 and 8. And so to think that a presidential campaign, not congressional, not senatorial, spent 50% of their voter contact budget on digital voters means that, Brad Parscale probably changed the medium itself, right? And everybody's got to adapt to that.
Right. And so there, and you can correct me, where I'm wrong on this is, I think they went so hard in digital because Trump already had name recognition. So then it just became like messaging. Whereas people, if you're new and you're running, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
So sending them a targeted Facebook ad isn't really going to move the needle.
Yeah. And he did something that nobody else has done effectively on the Republican side. And again, just speaking from like direct experience with these campaigns is that Parscale has a CRM, and he's really tracking all of that data, and they're housing it. So, you not only need to go pay to get the data, you need to house the data, you need to be able to sort the data, and then again, put together that coalition. So, I mean, what you're saying is probably right. And I tell that Trump broke political science, but in a lot of ways, he didn't break the fundamental element, which is name ID. Trump had universal name ID. He didn't have to pay to get anybody to get to know him or his record. He could go totally in opposition mode and just raise everybody's what they're called unfavorables. So he raised their unfavorables till they lost donor money. And when you lose donor money, you don't have any, you can't put together your coalition. So Trump.
Okay, so you're saying that he was able to weaponize his spend, if you will. You don't have to say, hey, I'm Donald Trump. Everybody knows Donald Trump. So you can take that money and point it directly at firing directly at a opponent.
Yeah, because then, so the campaign life cycle. So now let's talk about the life cycle of the dollar is, 80% of your campaign, you will only spend like 30% of your budget, but that will be developing name ID. So making the community aware that you exist. And you have to do that, just like classic marketing. You want to touch you want to hear the name 7 times on at least 4 mediums. And so Trump already had that. So he was already working on.
So I think most people that don't follow politics, that is such a great marketing point, though. I mean, it really goes unnoticed, I think, by most people, is that he was able to take this and he's got ammunition.
He was on the second life cycle while everybody was stuck on the first. I mean, even Ted Cruz and people had viral moments. Does the caucus goer know you? Does the first primary in the country, New Hampshire, know you? What are you dealing with in South Carolina, which is different than both other states? So you have the life cycle of the dollar, the life cycle of your campaign, which is so dependent on courting money first before voters. And
he's already ahead of the game the day he starts.
And then the schedule. So it's such an art. It is the art of war. And here's the guy who wrote The Art of the Deal. And so he was already focused on the second part of that. And
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's when you're spending money to attack people. That's when you're spending money to define yourself and solidify coalitions. And, he went after angry populists or former Tea Partiers and Ross Perot voters, Pat Buchanan voters, and he put together a coalition that his base was stronger than anyone else's base. And as he knocked people down, he would just get 30% of that loser, 30% of that loser, and he built a sandwich.
Now, did Trump's organization, were they, in your view, were they intelligent enough to be able to understand what you're talking about when they were actually in that time period? Or is this a, hindsight's 2020 moment?
Who knows? I think that they were clearly intelligent enough to win. If it's instinct, that's scarier. If they weren't using science, if it's instinct, then that's scarier because.
So is that part of the reason why we saw these things? I'm thinking back to the 2016 election, and you saw these things where, like, the New York Times had this meter, and it said Hillary Clinton 92%, right? And I don't remember. Now you're a politics guy, right? But I don't remember anybody calling the state of Pennsylvania for Donald Trump that night.
I think they did. I think they eventually called it that night.
No. I mean, I'm talking to 2 weeks prior.
Oh, heck no.
So
no
was he able to maybe use this technique, maybe this part of it, but is that why it took so many people by surprise?
I think so. I think that, a lot of people were caught up. There's 2 different elections. You can run by the map and the math, or you can run as a referendum and a narrative. And Hillary Clinton knew she was losing the map, and we know this now from the emails. The DNC said we need to go from Iowa, where he's winning by 16 points, and we need to go into Michigan. There is a problem. So the internal polling on both campaigns said the same thing, and the media polling said something different. And a lot of people, like newspapers, pay for polls, and they say one thing, but everyone knows that you pay more for the internal polls. There you have larger sample sizes. They're dealing with the voter data, so they actually know who's going to the polls for them. So it's more accurate on the campaign. So Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump knew that he was going to win, believed that he was going to win Michigan. She thought, I don't want to raise the alarm, because she had bet, I'm going to build this national referendum that I'm president, and I'm going to run on Obama's third term. And so what he said is, I'm going to run on the map. And well,
you do have some pretty shocking states. And again, we're a lot of our audience is not like political guys, right?
I was shocked 2 hours into the night.
But you have states like Michigan that went for Trump. You have states like Pennsylvania that went for Trump. I just don't remember anybody saying that, even on like a site like Real Clear Politics or something, saying, "Oh,
no one in politics said it," but there were commentators, and folks on Twitter that were saying it, because they really believed that either they could put back together the Blue Dog Democrats, the Reagan Democrats, the silent majority, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people in my industry, we believed all those people were dead. It turns out not only are those people not dead, but that there are younger people who are still affected by these issues. I mean, you go into some of these towns in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and you're really saying that a grandfather and a father, the grandfather's retired, the father's out of work, the son has to go to college and never return home. That is a cultural genocide of sorts. And Donald Trump uniquely spoke to that. And so, it was coal, it was these towns, it was stabilizing their jobs in Pennsylvania. In Michigan, it was TPP. And Wisconsin, it was TPP. And it was just actually really impressive what Donald Trump did. But what I think is, Jared Kushner, Brad Parscale, and a little message massaging by Kellyanne really won Trump the race. They allowed him to run himself, authentically himself, and then targeted the ads around that.
So things are changing, obviously, over the next year. You've got one big thing that I've read here in the news recently, and you two guys could really speak to this, but Twitter is not allowing campaign ads. I mean, what is this? I mean, what's both of your takes on that?
Yeah. I think they're following TikTok. So TikTok was the first platform that announced it. And I think it is safer, right? If you want to evade scrutiny, especially coming from the Congress, and it's happening on both sides. This is what's great about it. It's Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump feel the same about Facebook. In a lot of ways, if Elizabeth Warren gets in, it's worse for these companies than Donald Trump. A lot of supporters of the president believe that Donald Trump's been too light. The administration's been too light with the Silicon Valley.
And he doesn't want. And he doesn't. Hey, the difference I think is that the Trump supporters hate the censorship, but Elizabeth Warren, they hate all money.
Yeah.
So the Trump people are just saying, "Hey, let my people talk,
right,
and then we'll leave you alone because we want you to make all this money, and we're happy for you." And the Democrat approach is we need to tax them all to death, which it's interesting to watch that play out. Like Mike Bloomberg now is in the race, and the billionaires are endorsing him, even though he's going to waste all of his money. So, okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. And before I do that, though, I just want to make a quick point, too, about the political ad ban is the reason Twitter's banning the political ads is because that helps Democrats. So, for example, I saw a tweet on CNN today, a CNN quote-unquote reporter is, here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez knocking on doors in Iowa for Bernie. It's just propaganda. There's no commentary. It's just pure propaganda. That's a political ad.
Yeah, and if it wasn't a media company, you would have to register as an in-kind donation with the FEC, Right. And it would have a cap.
So let's play a fun game. There was a guy, I know his name, but it obviously didn't work, Tom Steyer. Michael Bloomberg, we know his name. So what if you had $100 million and you just have some no-name like Tom Steyer? What would you do that was better than what he did?
Better than what he's doing? He's still running.
Well, yeah, I thought he was out, but right.
I think understanding that, again, the calendar is much of a part of the narrative process. I'd go so heavy into corn subsidies in Iowa, and New Hampshire loves to buck Iowa anyway. That, it's like you pick New Hampshire, you pick Iowa, and you become their champion. I think if you're the underdog. Mike Huckabee did this. A lot of people, President George W. Bush, did this when he was running behind John McCain. And John McCain got caught by surprise, then had to be the comeback kid in New Hampshire, which is something that's like played out every decade. Bill Clinton, John McCain, somebody will do it this cycle. But so I think like if I had $100 million, I wouldn't worry about the proportional representation rules or how the delegates are divided up. I wouldn't worry about the super delegates. I wouldn't worry about, in a lot of ways, Andrew Yang building a coalition that he could present to the media made it a story. And so I would figure out how could I hijack the narrative in which I'm called a better contender than Beto and, Castro and, and I love the outrage that the Gabbard fans and the Yang fans have for being excluded from certain things, because that's sexy, that's appealing. And the Iowa caucus goers want to be contrarian. New Hampshire, wants to be contrarian while still, sealing who the nominee is. And I would, it's early states rule because it can increase your fundraising, 10x you overnight.
So somebody with your skill set, as Mike had asked, could you take a no-name person and compete effectively against, let's not say a Donald Trump, because I think that's a little bit over the top. I mean, I used to play a Donald Trump video game in the 1980s when I was a kid. I mean, the guy's been a part of, iconic culture for so long. So that's not really a fair comparison. But somebody that has you're like, I know that name. Maybe I don't know who that is, a non-political person. And then you've got a guy like Tom Steyer that no one knows who he is. Could you effectively do that with the same budget?
Yeah, I think the presidential race makes it difficult. But if you're talking at the Senate level, if you're talking congressional level, it is so fun to do that. I actually did that. I took out Mike Castle out of Delaware. He was the most popularly elected federal official in the entire country. He was a congressman running for Senate. Delaware is a super small state, and I used, pardon this, Christine, but I used a crazy woman to beat him. And we ran on one issue, the repeal of Obamacare, and he was the only Republican who wasn't for the repeal of Obamacare, and I turned it into a national referendum. So I won her the primary. I got off the race. She did the I'm not a witch thing in the general with Fred Davis, who's an ad maker, kind of a rhino Republican or whatever. So they, probably sabotage. But it's been done before. So if you know that there's limited news, local news, statewide news, blah, 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 then you build it around pro-life events or, you tap these ex-vaxxers, or you find coalitions that create their own news and you occupy the heck out of it.
Okay, so it goes back to the old adage, all politics is local. And that's
all
still
politics
true.
is local, and you just have to build a coalition that's 50% plus one. Nobody can beat the math. I mean, that's all you have to do is cobble together 50% plus one, and media works on a narrative that's universal, so they don't ever want you to gain momentum. But we have, in politics, we have money and momentum, and everybody will agree momentum is more powerful than money. But it's something you want to schedule, and you have to have money to get there. And so, but once you have momentum, you reach escape velocity, and no one can stop you.
But that momentum goes both ways, right?
No.
I mean, downward momentum?
Not really.
I mean, if we look at I think you and I had talked about this at one point, Jeb Bush.
He never had it. Even Kamala Harris, those polls were fake. I was the first and only person in the country who tweeted that Elizabeth Warren was actually in second or third, and that the New Hampshire polls that were coming out showing Kamala Harris in second were fake. I just said it's fake because what I know from marketing, and everybody knows this at McDonald's, everyone knows this at Bank of America, anyone in Madison Avenue knows that those numbers are fake because campaigns are 9-month temporary institutions that use the same marketing psychology as everybody else, except for I'm marketing a person, they're marketing a product. They get to be around forever, so it's stable for them. We've got to do something extraordinary in a short amount of time. If you're telling me that a cable news debate, 500,000 people, 1 million people watched it, boosted her polls 10 or 15%, I'm calling BS on that. So I actually don't think that momentum works downward, or it would have worked for Hillary.
But I like that you bring that up often, too, which is what I've always tried to teach people for years with internet marketing is, there's a joke called internet marketing math. which is 100,000 people read me, therefore
impressions.
I sold 1 million things. You're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, the conversion is way less. So people would say, oh, she had this great CNN town hall, but when you look at the math, you do the numbers, you're like, wait, there wasn't that many people watched it. It
Not
wasn't
at all.
the Super Bowl.
Right.
It wasn't 500 million people worldwide watching.
Did her rallies grow?
Right.
Was she being swamped at the airport? I haven't seen a single Democrat get swamped at the airport.
Right.
You know? So I just don't buy fake math. And I think it's easy, you know, once you've done, it's just intense marketing. I wish people on Madison Avenue had to do one campaign during their life, because, you know, I can only solicit so much money from a donor. There's a cap. Right. And then I have to raise a lot of money, and I have to deal with opposition press and it's not Burger King versus McDonald's and Wendy's. Right. It's you versus the world, you know, and you're strapped in, and you've got to tell your own story louder, bolder than anyone. And we're getting better at it. Andrew Breitbart was a late friend of mine, and I said, you know, like, in a lot of ways, and, you know, not to kiss his ass, but, you know, Mike is kind of the next inception of that. Who else has commanded the narrative in such a way that says, you're responding to me, I'm not responding to you? And I think in a lot of ways, like, Kamala Harris's campaign thought I was weak because, oh, he's biracial. Oh, he has a little criminal history. Oh, he's a Republican operative. And they had no idea that I have the lexicon on colorism, racism, and I can talk about, you know, the racial issues on an academic level, and that caught them off guard. And then they were using an entirely white comm staff. So I had baited them into my narrative, and then they were responding to me the whole time. And I think that's what, like, Mike does on Twitter. And I think if you're a congressional candidate or senatorial candidate, make them respond to your mistakes. Make them respond to your wins. Make them respond to your coalitions and your fundraising numbers.
That's what Trump did, and you don't see very many people do that, where you push the pace so fast, and that's why I'm actually giving Democrats credit for the impeachment stuff against Trump.
Right.
MAGA people don't like to hear it, but I don't really care. I don't need to pander to them. It's a smart thing to make the other person play your game, because then people make mistakes.
Right.
That's why there's a saying, a fast talking salesperson. Right. The more you wait, what did you just say?
I know a political commentator that does that out of California.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now the deal's sealed. Everything's fast. You're pushing the pace. And the Democrats did a great job of that, of making Trump play their game now. It's always one thing after another, but that's actually effective. But Trump, as a campaigner, he made everybody play his game. And that he got away with things that, quite frankly, are shocking. John McCain, you know, as a POW, I don't like him, but whatever the case is, you would not think anybody could do it. But
he said some things.
He would just keep pushing forward to something else that people would have to play his game again. Because you can only, and I've learned this from you, this is a very smart thing, which is very wise, is nobody dies in politics.
Yeah.
And this even segues maybe into a mindset podcast we with the Tate brothers. Earlier, though, people do create this mental construct that, oh, God, they killed me today.
Right.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. You're still alive. You got your account. You're tweeting. Yeah. It's funny. The first rule in politics is do no harm. And so getting your opponent to make an unforced error is $1 million move. You can't buy that much, you know, publicity. Right. Earned media, there's paid media and earned media. So if you do earned media, you've saved your campaign some money, you've gotten some votes, you've done some awesome things. But getting them to make an unforced error gives them negative earned media, and
the Michael Dukakis effect.
Yeah, and it's the art of war. Make them expend their resources until they're starved, and then their morale is weakened, they're physically weakened, and just go bum rush them with the cavalry. And so, you fortify them, you send a spy in, find out if they have the resources, wait them out. And so if you start thinking about campaigns like with an x-axis and a y-axis and then a z-axis, anybody can win. I mean, this sounds a little trite, but we're in an age unlike any other where the mediums are shifting and people aren't adapting fast enough to the medium shifting. So if you are someone on the internet that says, I also get direct mail, or I'll get the expert that gets direct mail, you can't you can't lose, because you become a master of both.
Yeah, people, and you also said something which was good, and I think most people don't understand, is Madison Avenue people should do a campaign, but I thought too when you said that is most people who do campaigns though should have to sell products.
They should.
You learn about math real quick.
Yeah,
You gotta get, and you're like, wait, I thought 1 million people read me, but I sold 10 books.
Yeah.
What happened, right?
Yeah.
Well, something happened, and you figure that out. The campaigns would do just sort of like voodoo math. Oh, we're doing a $1 million ad spend on TV. Yeah. Okay, well, how are you tracking it? How do you define a conversion? No. How do you define a cause to action? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it was all people and Pascal and all them, they were just micro-targeting. They had metrics. Here's how we're going to calculate things. Here's how we're going to track them. And people from who've done actual commercial marketing, you live and die by that.
Yeah. And to your point is, what's funny is, I think Madison Avenue should do campaigns just so they can see the stress and the limitations of marketing and what you have to do with real guerrilla marketing. But I'm going to admit it, 95% of people in my industry can't survive in what I call the real private sector. They have no idea what these tools are because we don't ever have the budget to know. So part of it's our fault and part of it's not. But it's certainly just a different beast. Like, you have to understand the science. You have to understand how it's changing decade to decade. And you got to understand your limitations. And it's not understanding their limitations is why Jeb Bush lost. It's why Tom Steyer's losing. It's why Michael Bloomberg will lose. It's why a lot of these people will lose, because they're putting money into impressions and not conversions. And I actually want to write a book. Nobody steal it, but I want to write a book called Impressions and talk about media as I see it, because that's what I think is happening. Is we're all being programmed through these impressions, but it doesn't convert until you reach now a higher number than it's probably ever been measured, because you're getting saturated with so much content. This is why Facebook converts and Twitter doesn't, because we're getting 10 times the content on Twitter, so nobody clicks anything. On Facebook, they found the perfect rhythm.
It's actually, I remember when I had a much smaller Twitter following, if I linked to a blog post, I actually got more clicks.
And it was probably
5 years ago than today.
I was going to tell you, I would say, there was 3 years on Twitter where the click-through rate was higher, well, at least in politics, than it was on Facebook. And it's like when my audience was 15,000 people, not the 100,000 I have now, I was getting more raw numbers click through to a blog article than I am now.
So does the ban on political campaigns on Twitter, does that enhance the value or the impact of accounts like, say, Mike's?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that, because the first thing I thought of when the ban hit is I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have people harass me.
No, you're right. You're right.
I was like, oh God, leave me alone. I already see it coming.
Yeah,
right.
Influencer marketing.
Yeah. I'm so already like dreading that, because because people already annoy me enough asking for retweets. And now that what'll be created around there, and this is be interesting legally.
Right.
And I'll get your legal opinion. That's why I've never taken $1 for a retweet. I won't do it, and especially with political stuff. So you're going to have influencer marketing, and then they're going to get paid. But if that's not disclosed as like on the FEC forms or something, I think a lot of people could potentially get into some big trouble.
It could be janky. Here's the thing: is like the bigger accounts and the more money, you get more trouble. The FEC says that you have to disclose the end party. So, for example, if I gave a digital firm $100,000 to a digital ad budget, they wouldn't have to disclose how they chopped it up. Mm-hmm. However, if I know they're spending all that $100,000 on Facebook, then what the FEC wants me to do, they've never prosecuted anybody for it or fined anybody for it, which is what the FEC does. But they, I should pay Facebook and then pay them a consulting fee. So the FEC wants your disclosure to be as clean as possible and use the end party. But if a consultant is selling you on a total package, so if I said, I can package together a bunch of influencers, and I don't tell you the influencers are, then you're probably not violating it. But if this campaign is coming to you all the time and giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're not disclosing it, then, they are afoul of the FEC rules.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not going to touch it. And moreover, not only I'm not going to touch it, but I'm going to be annoyed by people who, because we just see this already. I found out I was on a slide deck where people were charging.
I think you're on two.
So they were actually charging, because what would happen is a guy that I was friendly with would say, oh, would you retweet this? I'm like, sure. What's the problem? No problem. And then I found out that this guy was making $20,000 a month per client. And he would say, hey, look, I can get Cernovich to retweet you.
Oh,
and I just thought this guy was like a buddy of mine or something. I might be in another pitch deck. So when this stuff comes out, so I've repeatedly said, like, nobody is allowed to sell my name or pay for retweets. And then there's a big company that they make actually a ton of money doing that. I'm not going to name them because I have friends who are there or whatever. But I certainly wasn't happy when I found out what they were doing and how they were working the game. And I imagine that's going to get even shadier as 2020.
Can we dive into that though a little bit? Because I think, again, you got to remember a lot of people are not Twitter guys, right?
Yeah.
And you guys glance over this a little bit, but does it, just point blank, yes or no, does it impact getting rid of these ads? Does it make an account, say Diamond and Silk? Is their account have more impact now politically?
More value. Yeah,
Yes.
that's easy. Yeah, that's just easy.
Okay.
Yes. Because you still want to get your messaging out. So now they're going to have that. I mean, actually, the ban on political ads on Twitter is a boon for two groups: the media, because they're left leaning, and influencers. Because they're going to be getting a ton of loot. Like, I'm not going to say Diamond and Silk specifically, but people like that are going to get a ton of loot, because how else are you going to get your political ads and your political messaging out there? So they'll need to, chop them up all nice. And the Trump has a war room, and they're going to need people to retweet those videos and other things they're doing. No, totally raised their rates.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, you have Instagram, which I think yesterday or very recently announced that they're getting rid of likes in the United States. So now they
call that the Kanye effect. You know, that was a big thing he pushed.
And Twitter wants to get rid of retweets showing.
Really?
Yeah, because of Kanye. Kanye's trying to get them all to get rid of that.
You know, Kanye's read the psychology, and he's read all the studies that all say the same thing, and that's that a lot of people do unhealthy things that it's like alcohol, except for we don't know when to stop, and it's affecting more people disproportionately than any drug. And it's this dopamine, serotonin rush, and that color red and seeing the pop. It's like you have to think that browsers even cooperated with this. This is how we innovated more across web standards. Obviously it's like a rolling thing in the past 10 years than we have in a long time. It's because it's like a JavaScript library called Ajax and jQuery. All this stuff is being used to animate the web in a way that resembles TV advertising.
Wow.
And so it's really interesting. This is like a weird plug, but I watched the show American Gods, and I think it's Showtime. You can watch it on Amazon. And I watch it, and that's how I learn about personified memetics. Is like, how do you I talked about it for a long time, avatar culture, and it's like how do you, some ideas themselves become people, or people yes,
hey, we have a guest. Here, come here a second. I'm going to pass you over. Here you go. Oh my God,
Syra the Great.
Yeah,
everybody.
we got a guest on the show, an unannounced guest.
Yeah, but I just think so it's really interesting, and I plug it all the time. My audience is going to be, golly, amusing ourselves to death by Neil Postman. It's like, if you start the journey down the rabbit hole to understand that messages are secondary to mediums because they are a byproduct of the medium, you can take a lot of control of a lot of stuff. What I did to Kamala Harris by saying American Black instead of Black American totally made that thing go viral. And it wouldn't have otherwise. And so programmed to the medium, and so Instagram and Twitter kind of rolling this back. I think it's healthy. I actually Senator Hawley out of Missouri, has some legislation. I tell everyone he doesn't mean it. It's like a threat legislation. He's like, take disclaimers everywhere, take away all this and this, and it's more like, hey, you guys want to run up against us? We'll run up against. I love it, and it's what do you call it? It's like gutter politics, or it's a street fight out there. But so I don't know. But we as a species, in 50 years, this is going to seem barbaric that we went this long without regulations on people psychologically hacking us. It's going to seem freaking barbaric.
Interesting take. Yeah.
And I don't think that that's inherently more liberal or progressive. I think that it's about your health or not. And I think in a lot of ways, monarchs and leaders with strong central control understood this. You can't let your population be hijacked by persuasion if it's hurting your population. That's the veto. Who cares about ideology? Stop.
Right.
So.
Well, I think it's really great to have a guest like you on that has such an incredible background knowledge on politics and in the inner workings behind the scenes. We all see the TV shows and things like that in the news reports, but there's a lot that happens, an enormous amount that happens behind the scenes. And it's interesting in a year of, this election year that we have over the, the next several months of coming into the presidential election here, having somebody like you that can kind of break this down. So we appreciate you being here.
So where can people learn more about you?
It's all on Twitter. Ali, that's the router for everything when I'm not shadow banned. So ALI on Twitter.
It doesn't get much easier than a handle than that. ALI.
Yeah. Everywhere else, Ali Alexander on YouTube and the rest of them. But Twitter's my baby. It's my diary, and
Sure.
I don't care about conversion rates there. It's my public diary, and it's also a call to action. I'm able to.
And are there any other projects that you're involved with that you want to talk about?
Not really,
Okay.
but there's a ton. I'll say this: I've never been more satisfied. I'm richly blessed by God right now. I've never been more satisfied. I'm running nimble. I'm scaling over this next 6 months, and a lot of exciting things that are going to impact the national election.
Well, 2020 is a big year for
Biggest.
your industry.
It's big for the country. We're going to decide it's actually big for the world. We're going to decide whether China will rule over the world from space and the Democrats win, or whether we might have a chance at a second beginning for America. And I really believe that. I don't think it's Democrat versus Republican or Trump versus whatever. I think it's like we have to decide as a society, are we okay appeasing people who don't like us because the media has decided. It's so weird. The labeling is so false.
Yeah.
It's alarming. I would abolish corporate media right now, And so sometimes it's actually hard for me to call myself a free speech absolutist because I'm like, well,
Right.
there's some stuff that's not working. What do you want me to do when the science says this? So
Yeah.
So we're at a crossroads. I think everybody ought to be involved in some way to advocate for their belief.
Well, you got a year to do that, right, over this next election year. So again, thanks so much for being
guys.
here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.